This podcast is made possible by you, the supporters of WPLN and WNXP, Nashville Public Radio.
This is the Nashvillager Podcast. It's April 6, 2026. Today in Clarksville, people will gather to comfort the family of Ariana Pearson. She's one of two girls who died about a week and a half ago on what was supposed to be a school trip to Jackson, Tennessee. Ariana's life ended just 2 days shy of her 14th birthday. Her classmate, Zoe Davis, was also 13. She was buried over the weekend. They were part of a group of 24 middle school kids who'd spent all year building electric cars. That trip was supposed to end at a competition where they could put their creations through their paces. But now the focus is on a very different kind of vehicle, the school bus they were riding. I'm Nina Cardona, and this is your daily digest of what's happening around Middle Tennessee with context from Nashville Public Radio, WPLN News. Transportation for that Kenwood Middle School field trip to that competition in Jackson was on just your standard full-size yellow school bus, which in Tennessee means it didn't have any seatbelts on the passenger seats. According to the National Transportation Safety Board, or NTSB, those buses are some of the safest vehicles on the road. Their website cites a statistic that less than 1% of the nation's traffic fatalities involve kids riding on school buses. They say the biggest danger related to the buses is how everyone handles kids getting on and off. So there's a lot of focus on lights and signals that indicate the bus is stopping, and on having strong traffic laws that require all drivers to stop and create a safe zone for children to cross the road to and from their bus stop. Which isn't to say federal regulators aren't paying attention to the vehicles themselves. School buses have to be built differently from other cars or trucks on the road. They're designed to distribute the force of a crash in a way that lessens the impact on passengers. The seats are close together and have tall backs with heavy padding that's designed to cushion and protect children. Experts call that compartmentalization. Basically, if something goes wrong, those seats are compartments that are meant to keep everyone in place and safe. Kind of like the molded foam packing materials that manufacturers put around electronic equipment when they box it up for sale. Now, it's not going to prevent bumps and bruises, but it should, in most cases, make a more serious injury unlikely. And in a normal accident, those features work pretty well. Years ago, when I was a kid riding the bus every day, my school bus was crossing a narrow bridge when a little sports car tried to zip through at the same time. The sports car was totaled. I don't remember even feeling the impact in my seat. We heard it. But yeah, the force distribution worked well enough that those of us in the back just thought the driver had made a hard stop. And the bus was just so much bigger and heavier than that car or most any other passenger vehicle on the road. But not all accidents are that straightforward. The bus carrying those Kenwood Middle School students collided with a dump truck. It was two giant vehicles bringing all their force towards each other head to head. And then after hitting the truck, the bus went headfirst into what seems to be a fairly deep ditch. Footage from the wreck shows the front portion of the bus was crumpled, accordion style. Now, that footage also shows kids climbing out of the rear emergency exit. And the fact that 22 of the 24 students are still alive and okay is testament that, yes, the compartmentalization approach to bus safety can work. But the images of that bus face down in a ditch show that distributing force and padding the seats only goes so far. The deaths of Ariana and Zoe are tragic proof of that fact. And statistics that say school buses are much safer than other vehicles are no comfort to the Pearson and Davis families or to the other children who scrambled out of the bus alive only to realize their friends had died, or to the school community mourning together right now. And so we have to ask, could seatbelts have saved their lives? And why not, along with compartmentalization, also install seatbelts on full-size school buses? I keep specifying full-size because smaller buses are required to have passenger restraints. But there have been calls for years to extend that requirement to all sizes of school bus. Safety advocacy groups are big fans of the idea. Starting 2 years ago, one of the major school bus manufacturers announced they were going to start making seatbelts a standard feature. The Bluebird website points out that compartmentalization doesn't offer any protection from rollovers and is of limited use when something crashes into the side of the bus. Never mind the fact that kids aren't always the most compliant about staying in their seats like they're supposed to. And they're basically unprotected if they are standing or in the aisle at the time of a wreck. However, the company did still decide to make restraints a standard feature that customers could opt not to include. You know who else has been on the add seatbelts to school buses bandwagon? The NTSB. Yes, the very same agency that touts the safety of the vehicles as they are. Back in 2018, after another deadly school bus accident here in Tennessee, the NTSB issued a recommendation that new buses should have lap and shoulder belts. A different federal agency, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, has been saying the same thing since 2015. And just last year, at a conference of school transportation professionals, an NTSB board member spoke on the topic, saying, quote, "It is hard to believe we are still having a discussion about the safety benefit of seatbelts on any roadway vehicle, much less a school bus." Most U.S. states have considered requiring seatbelts, but only a few have passed those laws. And that conference discussion is a window into some of the reasons why those bills haven't passed. Cost is a big issue. The price tag for retrofitting an existing bus is in the thousands. You could phase in seatbelts as vehicles are added to a school district's fleet. But to that, some ask how they can explain to parents why the kids on the other bus route got restraints, but their kids don't have them. There's a concern that it could be harder to evacuate young children from a bus in the event of a fire or submersion, or that small kids could actually be injured by the belts themselves. And there are questions about how the bus driver is actually going to make sure all of those kids buckle up and keep their seatbelts on while also, driving the bus. But some states have passed seatbelt laws. They have figured out how to roll out the change, how to pay for it, how to get kids to comply. In the days since Ariana and Zoe died, Tennessee Senator Mark Pody has said he intends to raise the issue in this state's legislature. In just a few minutes, will the Tennessee Highway Patrol start using facial recognition technology? That's coming up after the newscast.
Here's the mantra I think about at WPLN. We connect the dots. It captures a mindset that our journalism is not merely about the latest press release or proclamations by officials. Instead, we can develop expertise, dig deeper, and look to history to understand what's happening now. I'm Tony Gonzalez, news director. When I'm planning coverage and editing stories, the best part is being part of a team that's curious about our community and invested in its future.
Here's the latest from WPLN News. The parents of a child killed in a fatal bus crash are suing the driver and the Clarksville Montgomery County school system. The bus crashed into a Tennessee Department of Transportation dump truck in Carroll County a few weeks ago. 25 students were on board and 2 died at the scene. Zoe Davis was one of them. Her parents, John and Jessica Davis, say that both the school district and the bus driver were negligent. According to the complaint, the bus driver was fatigued and not paying attention when she veered into oncoming traffic and struck the truck head-on. They argue that the school district is also liable because the bus driver is an employee and she was not properly trained or supervised. They're seeking damages of up to $5 million. Judges in all Tennessee courts would be required to cooperate with ICE or face removal from the bench under a measure advancing in the State House. The measure passed in the House and could be heard this week in a Senate committee. Republican proponents say the bill will clarify what judges need to do. Critics say it could make more types of courtrooms intimidating for undocumented immigrants to engage with, such as coming forward as the victim of domestic violence. Democrats have argued the Attorney General already has the authority to investigate judges who resist immigration enforcement. Additional nuclear power is coming to Tennessee with the goal of addressing electricity demands. Japanese leaders have invested up to $40 billion for small modular nuclear reactors, known as SMRs. They're a fraction of the size of the large plants that require cooling towers. It's the second project under Japan's $550 billion investment pledge to the U.S. as part of a U.S.-Japan trade deal. GE Hitachi will partner with the Tennessee Valley Authority to develop an SMR generating 300 megawatts of power. That's enough to supply between 200,000 to 300,000 homes, depending on weather and other local conditions. The project is expected to cost $5.4 billion. Well, the TVA, which is the nation's largest public utility, will again be searching for a new CEO. Don Mould told the Utilities Board on Friday that he will retire on July 1st. That's less than a year into his tenure. There's been tension with the Trump administration throughout, including the president delaying board appointments and slowing decision-making, as well as an ongoing effort to slash TVA employee salaries. Tennessee's 2 U.S. senators had also argued against an internal TVA hire like Moule for the CEO role. They've pushed for an outside hire who may be more inclined to accelerate nuclear energy ambitions. TVA generates electricity for local utilities across 7 states, powering the lives of some 10 million people. The Times Free Press reports the TVA board is working to name an interim CEO. A top official with a group of Nashville charter schools has resigned over the discovery of what one leader called a series of financial irregularities. Thomas Branch, chief operating officer of Valor Collegiate Academies, was placed on administrative leave before stepping down. The Tennessean reports details of the financial issue and when it surfaced aren't yet available. School officials say they've reported the matter to the state comptroller's office. It's also not clear if or when state investigators might release more information. It's never been more expensive to operate a restaurant in Nashville than right now. With commercial real estate costs ballooning under Metro's new property tax, some locally owned restaurants are fighting to survive. Naima Walker-Fierce is majority owner of Germantown Pub, a popular neighborhood bar and grill. She joined our weekday talk show, This is Nashville, and spoke about what she does when revenue falls short.
As an owner, I don't get a distribution from the business. I probably haven't gotten one in 4 years. So I run a totally different business that pays my personal bills. And more importantly, when Germantown Pub can't meet its obligations, I have to lend it money. And that happens at least once a month.
That's even though Germantown Pub has an esteemed reputation, having been featured on Food Paradise and Unbelievably Vegan. You can listen to the full conversation about the cost of running restaurants at thisisnashville.org or wherever you get your podcasts. Tennessee officials have been working to close the high-speed internet gap for years. They say only 2% of the state's population still lack access to broadband. Back in 2019, it was 1 in 5 Tennesseans. The state's broadband director tells WKRN the number should be 0 by 2028. That would entail getting about 43,000 households and businesses connected. To do so, state, federal government, and internet service providers together pitched in $400 million to close the gap. That will be distributed in grants for infrastructure, like fiber optic cables and towers.
You'll find more news anytime at WPLN.org.
Newly obtained public records show that the Tennessee Highway Patrol is looking into using AI facial recognition software to solve crimes. But that technology comes with privacy concerns. With the Appalachian Mid-South Newsroom, Ryan Van Velser sat down with reporters Pierce Gentry and Justin Hicks to learn more.
You recently released findings on how Tennessee State Police are looking into using a technology called Clearview AI. What is Clearview AI and how do police use it?
Clearview AI is this company that has scraped tons and tons of public photos online and the face print in each of these photos. So that's stuff like the distance between your eyes and your nose and your ears. And so Clearview's business model is that clients pay for access to that giant face database. They can upload a photo of a face and they can find a whole bunch of matches. And that ability is really attractive to police. And so you may have heard that folks like immigration officers are using Clearview AI. But we also know that so do a lot of local and state police departments, including ones in Kentucky and West Virginia.
That's really interesting. Are people upset about these photos being used for this purpose?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes people are really concerned about the privacy issues around it. People just don't know that their faces are being added to this massive searchable database. They're not asked for permission. In fact, we talked to Nate Wessler. He's with the ACLU. And he told us that another problem is that Clearview AI can also have a lot of false positives in those matches.
So what we've seen over and over in the known cases of wrongful arrest around the country is that the system spits out incorrect results. Those false matches end up looking like a suspect. And then you have well-meaning investigators and even well-meaning eyewitnesses looking at a photo lineup who just get it wrong because they are essentially tricked by the technology.
Okay, so despite these issues, Pierce, you found that the Tennessee State Police are starting to look into using Clearview AI, right? What did you find there?
Yeah, in a records request to the Tennessee State Police, we found emails where the department had set up a demo of the software in February. They were told they could provide suspect photos from an active investigation, and the company would use it as an example to show matches. After that demo, Clearview then followed up with a quote for nearly $1 million. We asked Tennessee State Police to chat about what their plans were. They declined to be interviewed, but instead a spokesperson emailed that they're looking into lawful technology to assist with lawful investigations to better serve the citizens of Tennessee. And Ryan, we think it's interesting that the department stressed the word lawful because less than a year ago, Tennessee's Attorney General signed on to a legal brief with some other states that clearly expresses the opinion that Clearview AI's scraping of photos is illegal.
So let me get this straight. The state police are looking into using the same software that Tennessee's Attorney General is opposing in an amicus brief over privacy violations. Is that right?
Exactly. I reached out to the Attorney General's office about these seemingly conflicting messages. After all, he is the top cop in the state. And they declined to comment, saying there's the potential for litigation. It's unclear if they're referencing the brief they already signed on to or if they mean a new lawsuit.
But if there are these legal concerns, why would police agencies be interested in using this technology in the first place?
We heard from Mike Gutierrez, a professor of public administration at the University of Tennessee. He says he spent several years working as an investigator at the Dallas Police Department in Texas, where he says something like Clearview AI could have helped him put bad guys away.
One of the most frustrating things as a law enforcement officer is to have maybe an image of a suspect, but nobody knows who the suspect is. And I think that's going to be a game changer.
He said he hopes police agencies will take it upon themselves to enact policies and make sure they're protecting people's constitutional rights, which is a real concern.
Wow. Thank you so much for your reporting, Justin, Pierce.
Thank you, Ryan.
Yeah, of course. Thanks.
Thanks for listening to the Nash Villager podcast. We take this look at Nashville news every weekday. If you like it, go ahead and subscribe on your favorite podcasting app and tell a friend or give us a mention on your socials. It really helps get the word out. And of course, everything at WPLN News is listener supported. You can become a member at WPLN.org. And that's it for today. Thanks so much for listening. Let's make this day a good one, and we'll catch back up tomorrow.